Hello everyone, this is Angela and welcome to my channel, Angie the ENTJ. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click on the notifications bell so you'll know whenever I upload any new content. This video is going to be my analysis of the Kevin Wesley interview from the Truth Factory about Alicia, the lady who refused to get out of her date's car at the Cheesecake Factory, and Jay, the guy who took her there. I'm going to cover some points that I feel that most people who reacted to this interview did not touch because, unlike me, they are not ENTJs, and what I mean by that is that my personality type is rare in general and even more rare in women. So, you know, it's so rare that only 0.9%, not even a full 1% of people on this planet are women who are ENTJs. So we see things through a very rare angle, and that's what I'm offering today. And with that in mind, I watched both interviews, the one-on-one interview with Kevin and Jay, which was about an hour and a half long, along with the interview when Alicia arrived, which was a little over 30 minutes long, and when they sat down and were interviewed jointly. Okay. The first thing that I tend to do, and that I did, was pay attention to who is conducting this interview. Who is bringing all the parties together? Listen, Kevin Wesley is a polygamous man who, in my opinion, was fan-duding all over Jay. I mean, he was there fan-duding. He was fan-duding, you know, cheering Jay on, okay? Kevin has stated that he has 2 wives. Those of you who have been with me for a while know that I have done an economic analysis of polygamy, and it always leads to a deficit. No matter how well I set up the polygamous family, no matter how many resources I give them in the economic analysis, trying to see if there is a way that polygamy can work, it always leads to a deficit. And that's the science at work, not me. And I have videos about it as proof that I'm not speaking out of my emotions. I'm very much so being technical and using the form of science, economic science, to prove it.
Now I got 2 wives already.
The nations also that score the lowest on the United Nations Human Development Index are all places where polygamy is practiced. Of course, everyone is free to live their lives how they see fit. I'm not judging Kevin for what he does, but I'm just analyzing it and seeing, this may play a role in some of his sentiments. Okay. So whenever I see a man who is polygamous, I know that chances are high that he will lowball the value of a woman simply because his lifestyle creates deficits that he will be challenged as the husband in that situation in order to overcome. See, from that economic analysis of polygamy, we see that polygamous problems seek monogamous solutions. And one of the problems with polygamy is that it produces a high bride demand. In other words, there are a bunch of men who all want to have multiple wives. So the demand for brides are high, right? However, since the birth rate of girls to boys is less than 1 to 1, meaning there are less girls born than boys typically in the world today, that means that when all these people grow up and become 20, there will be less women available compared to the men, but the men are still believing that they can have as many women as they want. So this produces a bride shortage. The birth ratio is producing a bride shortage to begin with, but especially in places where there is a high bride demand and polygamy is practiced, there is a severe bride shortage. And since there are not enough women to become brides in his community, especially brides who are willing to live in polygamy, what a polygamous man's solution will be is to migrate into other communities in order to talk the women out of their value and make them cheaper to obtain and easier to obtain. And if enough women were cheaper to afford, then he can have access to multiple women. And listen, like I said, I'm not speaking from emotions here. You can look at the UNHDI for insights on the health of nations where men who have access to multiple women, you see that they score at the bottom. They have poor infrastructure programs, high maternal mortality rates, meaning that more women die in childbirth, high infant mortality rates, meaning that there are a high number of babies who perish, high numbers of children that perish before the age of 5 due to preventable illnesses and so forth. In fact, this is part of, and I want to emphasize this, part of, not the entire, but part of the reason why Black women in the U.S. are at risk of dying during childbirth. It is because Blackistan is a de facto polygamous community, but I digress. So Kevin Wesley is over here as a polygamous man, eyeballing how monogamous people are moving. However, I can guarantee you that we monogamous people can't go and throw our noses into how he and the men of his community are moving as polygamous men. So when I saw this, I was like, You see, whether it is conscious or not on his part, the bottom line is that he has an interest in how monogamous people are moving because polygamous dysfunctions, polygamous problems always seek out monogamous communities and our resources as a remedy to their issues. And like I said, to prove my point, he is living here in the U.S., where bigamy and polygamy is actually illegal, and not somewhere that scores at the bottom of the UNHDI where polygamy is practiced. See, I be peeping game. You know. My next observation was actually earlier. It was during the infamous video between Jay and Alicia. Okay. And when I first saw Jay, the Cheesecake Factory guy, I noticed that he's a man from a different ethnic group. And stick with me, I say this very respectfully and absolutely with no harm, absolutely with zero harm intended. At the time when I first saw Jay, I thought that he might have been Arab. Again, knowing that I could be extremely, extremely, extremely wrong and no harm was intended on my part. I guess that he could very well be of a Latin background or an Italian background. Bear in mind, I lived in Italy for some time. So genuinely no harm meant on my part. But later I would learn during this interview that he shares ethnic ties with the people of India. At this point, I was just freaking floored. You know why? Because, listen, let me tell you, if you want to be sure that a piece of jewelry is real gold, take an Indian with you. Take an Indian with you. Indian people cannot be fooled on gold. I'm telling you. They know what 22 karat, 24 karat gold looks like from afar. Yes, they do. So, and this goes for the men and the women alike. But on another note, let me not make it about recognizing gold. As a collective, from my personal observation, they are very serious about whatever they do, be it business, be it education, especially whenever it comes to math and sciences. They like go 100,000% on whatever it is. Very ambitious as a collective. And I remember one of my teachers in high school, Dr. Siddiqui, he was from Pakistan, but his family migrated there from India during the partition. He was born in India before it divided up into Pakistan. And he shared those stories with us about how it was for himself and his family during the largest migration in human history. And he shared stories about what life was like for him and his family during those times. One thing I remember the most about Dr. Siddiqui, beyond being a highly principled and very humble man, is just how good of a professor he was. And I know personally because I was working on a difficult math problem in my spare time. For those of us that were a bit more advanced, he would challenge us to do, more advanced material and so forth. And so I was there in my spare time and I just couldn't seem to grasp how to solve the problem. And I'm used as a girl, as a typical black girl, I was so used to just figuring things out on my own without any help. And I was too shy to ask for help because, the reality is Black children kind of got the short end of the stick in the academic arena at times. So I was just another Black girl in an urban school setting. About 3 days later, Dr. Siddiqui came down to where I was in the class, told me everything that I was doing from stage 1 when I began to get stuck. And not only did he teach me how to solve that complex math problem at the time, I realized that he had been watching me not just since day 1, but since minute 1 when I was working on the problem. Dr. Siddiqui really and truly cared about me and empathized with me and actually wanted to help me. Unlike my previous math teachers, I felt seen and heard because of him. And afterwards, I was no longer shy as a student. I don't think Dr. Siddiqui realized at that precise moment the impact that he would have on me and my own path to education. And it was not just Dr. Siddiqui and his approach to his profession. I saw that he did everything in alignment with the advancement of his people, that he would put his group first and his individual desires last. He drove an older Toyota that he took really good care of, wore clothes that were handmade by Indians. He brought his lunch in Tupperware. He didn't go and spend money at McDonald's or Burger King or anything like that. Everything he did was like in the best interest of his group. And I really admired that. I paid attention to that. And even though some of my classmates would shrug off his stories about the times of how life was for him and his family during the partition, I was among the few that paid attention and really appreciated, still to this day, that he shared what life was like in such a vulnerable time period. I know he and his family faced a lot of hardships and saw a lot of bad things, unfortunately. I appreciated knowing more about his life. And Dr. Siddiqui is one person. I have, in my encounters through my life, seen similar things with the people. Dr. Siddiqui is just a small and humble example of my personal observation of various cultures hailing from that part of the world. When it comes to life, they tend to take it by the horns. When it comes to business, education, family matters, and so forth, they tend to go all in from my observation and give a 100,000% effort. And yes, back when I practiced Islam, listen, I routinely wore the sawal kameez. I had my custom made clothes, okay, and I definitely have some 22 karat Indian gold in my collection. And I rocks with the pakoras, the samosas, and the jalebi, and the mango lassies. And I've watched 8-hour-long Bollywood films. What's up? So I digress again. Back to what I was saying. And listen, here's the thing. Going back to Jay's background and the absolute only reason why I am analyzing it and considering it a factor, it is only because I do not see situations where the men who are not African American, for an example, Jay, will publicly chide a woman from their group to a man representing a different group. I don't see Arab men sitting down on a couch with African American men and discussing about how difficult some Arab women can be. And let me tell you something about Arab women. Hey, more often than not, they're the ones who rule the roost, especially here in the U.S. And I trust me, I'm not trying to generalize. I'm just going based off of what I see, not only through interaction, but also who shows up on the college graduation stages, who shows up owning businesses, who shows up, okay, earning high figure incomes, who shows up there in those spaces. I do not see Latin men siding with African American men about how difficult some Latin women can be. Again, Latin women are a very powerful collective as well. And I do not see Italian men. These are the ethnicities that I was guessing Jay to be. And I know I was very wrong. And I knew that I could be very wrong, but I meant no harm by it when I was trying to figure out just based on looking at him, he could be from here. He could be from there. So Italy was one of the places that I thought about when I saw him the first time. I lived in Italy for a while. So I've never seen an Italian man sit down with an African American man about how difficult some Italian women can be. I've lived in Italy before, and the bedrock of their family is more often than not the Italian woman. And I for dang sure do not see Indian men siding with any man against Indian women. No way. You know why? You know why? And this is the only reason why the background comes into play. It's called gatekeeping.
But yeah, when I talked to her afterwards, and I've texted her since, just here and there, make sure she's okay with all the comments and all that.
And I was not seeing this during the interviews at all from Kevin Wesley to Jay. I didn't see any gatekeeping behaviors. You see, one way that men compete against other men is by setting the bar of entry too high for other men to reach. That way, their women within their group keep their eyes on them as being desirable. Because see, if any man can walk in and take and grab you, then who's going to be left for them to date, marry, mate, and procreate with? Who? So it is a very masculine thing to do, to set the bar too high for any other man to reach. If a man does reach it, he had to work hard to get there. Okay? That way, their women keep their eyes on them as being desirable. Like I said, it's a masculine thing to do. And we can even witness this behavior not only among human beings, but also among animals in the wild. You see, in the wild, the male peacock knows that he has to spread his feathers wide in order to block the peahen's view of other males. The peacock is the national bird of India, by the way. Likewise, real men know that if they do not set the bar high, then the women will wander away. However, this goes back to Kevin Wesley. Here is this polygamous black man out here throwing that same bar into a muddy and bottomless pit, flinging the gate open, giving valet services, fan dooting over Jay, pulling out red carpets, and cheapening the access to the women of the monogamous community, who are fooled into believing that because Kevin Wesley is an African American, that we are all the same culture, when in fact we are not. Just like Indians can be Punjab, Desi, and so forth, we African Americans are quite diverse as well. And I just find it inappropriate to have someone who practices a different lifestyle want to come over into another person's group and weigh in on how they do things. All because we just so happen to be African Americans. So let's watch how Kevin attempts to lower the bar of entry to a monogamous black woman's womb. And I'll be back.
Get out of a date is a free bodyguard. Because if anything goes wrong with her, he has to really put his life on the line for her. Mm-hmm. So if a man asks you out on a date, you shouldn't say, I'm not ready to hold your hand. Mm-hmm. So if a man asks you out on a date, you shouldn't say, I'm not ready to hold your hand. I know that seems like a move forward in the relationship, so to speak, but it's actually just part of a date. Your goal is to give him an example of what it would look like if you were his partner, and his goal is to do the same. So to a man, you not doing those things makes it appear that you're not that interested.
It's definitely not ready to be a partner, I guess.
It also kills his ability to be completely masculine for you on that date, because if you won't take his arm, then, you know.
I feel like when you just said, like, trust is a big word, it is a big word. But maybe the way I saw it is when you wanted to go out with me at all, that was you trusting me.
Right.
And it did kind of hurt a little bit. I mean,
You see how he attempted to lower the bar of entry into Alicia's womb? Not only that, because this interview is something that many people are watching, he's a manosphere whisperer who is trying to influence women on behalf of males from that community as well. So no, Alicia does not have to hold a man's hand on a first date in order for that man to feel more masculine. This goes back to my observation of a polygamous man being inclined to bargain for womb access. So of course he's going to want that woman to hold his hand on the first date, simply because it reduces the time frame to get to the womb. A truly masculine alpha man knows how to take rejection and will do whatever it will take to win the lady over. It's just that simple. Marjorie Harvey was not an easy catch for Steve Harvey. They met in the 80s and did not get married until 3 decades later. Michelle Obama was not an easily accessible woman for Barack Obama. All of the Real Housewives of Atlanta, the Potomac, of New York City, of Orange County, Miami, Beverly Hills, and Salt Lake City, name the place. All of them are not easy women. Likewise, Alicia should not make it easy for Jay. No. The women who have the happiest relationships with their husbands are the ones that were the hardest for the men to get. See, here's my case in point. Because Alicia was so difficult with Jay, she is actually now able to get the date that she wants after all. And not only that, Jay is benefiting from her difficulty because now he doesn't have to pay for it this time. You see how rewarding it is for a woman to be uneasy. So on that note, I want to be Alicia's wing woman and say this. I believe that based on what I saw in the initial video, it was definitely miscommunication as the culprit at work. Both people seem to be very good people who can maintain their composure in the face of a conflict, which is so valuable. That's worth more than 1,000 diamonds. I'm serious. If they can get past the fact that miscommunication played a role in the conflict, if they can get over how each person reacted towards one another from the initial date, then I think they can truly make it in a marriage. And I am actually a married woman speaking on this, who's just celebrated, we just celebrated our 6th wedding anniversary. I'm speaking from experience and not from theory. From my perspective though, Jay and Alicia, man, that first date, wow, or the first attempted date, it was kind of like Nollywood met a Bollywood script and just exploded. Okay, so first thing is that Jay told Alicia that the location of the date would be a surprise.
Talking after that for a little bit, and then like a week later, I asked her, "You want to go out? To this restaurant?"
Yeah.
And I told her it would be a surprise. Mm-hmm. And maybe that might be a problem on my part. It might have raised the expectations a little bit, but I guess the surprise ended up being Cheesecake Factory, where
right.
Location of the date would be a surprise, which turned out to be Aria. But Alicia didn't know this at the time when Jay pulled up to the Cheesecake Factory. So Nollywood meets Bollywood here. Okay. And on top of that, Alicia was late due to factors that were beyond her control. She had mentioned that it was her job that kept her overtime. It screwed things up. Now, let's pause. So both Jay and Alicia had good intentions, but because Alicia did not know where Jay had initially planned to take her, and also because Alicia's job prolonged her time for getting ready to go on a date, it created the infamous moment that we all know about when Jay went into masculine man mode to find a solution to the missing reservation time and ended up arriving at the Cheesecake Factory because, to him, he had a lot of great memories there and he just wanted Alicia to be one of them. Not factoring in the feminine perspective on the first date, And that means doing everything you can to show that your value is high and that you're not a toy to be played with. Because not saying that Jay would do this, but there are plenty of guys who would take advantage of Alicia.
Encourage women on dating. Y'all talk about dating.
Right.
And this was something that you said, look, y'all see a lot of dates go wrong.
Right.
So based on your mindset, you really felt like he was taking you somewhere beneath your value.
Yeah.
And you were saying, I'm going to show the world how you're treating me. Right. Can you tell us a bit about that so he knows?
So Alicia had her guard up, and rightfully so. And I don't blame her for saying, oh, nope, you will not take me here, and I'm not getting out of the car. I don't blame her for doing that. That's what she's supposed to do. She's supposed to be difficult and hard to get. And she's supposed to hold on to her value and not let somebody cheapen it. So Jay handled the situation very politely and kept us cool, which was commendable. I'm glad that he did, because he misread her and he misunderstood her. I think Alicia handled the situation as she should have as well. She did not allow for her womb to be devalued. It was at this moment when Jay explained what the initial plans were, and also when he shared that, Alicia showed that she would have been all right going to Aria with Jay. This is proof that Alicia did not have a problem being with Jay himself. But because of miscommunication and misreading one another, Jay wasn't seeing it. That she only had a problem with where he took her and what it would signify about her. I did not see this being discussed during the Kevin Wesley The Truth Factor interview. It was more, from my perspective, about coloring a woman who wants to be held in high esteem as a gold digger who is seeking an experience than it was with her navigating the dating world as a black woman filled with men who are quick to devalue her, who will want to hurry up and hold her hand and probably kiss her before they even get out the car on the first date. I'm not saying Jay would do that, but there are men out here who would do that. And although Jay stayed calm during the conflict, which was great and admirable, the problem that I did take with Jay is that even after Alicia apologizes for her overreaction, once she knew that Jay was not trying to play with her like that, once she realized that it was because her job made her late according to Jay's planned events, and after she stated that she saw his perspective and was still even willing to go to the Cheesecake Factory after it all, Jay did not offer her the same grace at that point in time of seeing the situation from her perspective, which was totally his ego at work.
Gonna take her home. I don't have to do this. Yeah. Even to the point when you said, I will go eat with you at Cheesecake Factory. He saw it.
At that point, he was more committed to the fact that he had put his foot down and, this is final. And I said what I said. I'm going to take you back home. He was more committed to that than committed to the truth that it was a miscommunication. And that was a very childish move. I'm calling it out because you know what? How the heck are you going to make it in any long-term relationship if you do not know how to deal with misunderstandings and do not understand that people will disappoint you? If you will not accept their apologies, especially when they attempt to make it right. And I'm saying this all within reason for those of you in the back. I'm not talking about relationship ending situations such as cheating and domestic violence and all of that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about things such as what we saw with miscommunication. She tried to make it right with him at that point in time. She apologized. This is the kind of situations that married people routinely face. And if your ego takes over, whether it is with Alicia or with anyone else, you will have a dysfunction because it becomes more about you being right and venting your anger than accepting a bigger truth that misunderstandings and miscommunications can and absolutely will occur. So if Jay can acknowledge that and allow his ego to settle down while reasoning can take over, then I feel that he and Alicia, based off of what I can see from this vantage point, they have a great chance. I'm glad that they are going out on another date at the expense of Kevin Wesley and the Truth Factory. That's cool. I like resolutions. However, Alicia was not wrong in having her standards so high up that they can only be found on Neptune or Pluto. And no, she does not have to hold any man's hand on the first date or kiss him on the cheek or hug him or anything. Too many women played nice and ended up in a grave behind it, or ended up as unwed mothers to men who practice de facto polygamy. Listen, Alicia and anybody else, be hard, be difficult. What I'm actually saying, though, is that it's all right to have boundaries and expectations. So grip them, hold on to them tightly with a vice grip, okay? And hey, Alicia, I will gladly throw rice at your wedding. Just have some jalebi there, because, and on top of that, Indian weddings, let me tell you, they typically cost over $100,000. They are absolute shows. Invite me, girl. Invite me. You too, Jay. Invite me. And Jay will need to check his ego and accept that life does not follow a railroad track. It will not fit into a cookie cutter. And this is especially true when you combine two cultures. Again, I am speaking from experience as a wife who is currently in an international marriage where my husband and I are from two completely different nations, completely different cultures. And child, we have had our moments, as all married couples will and as all married couples do. From the looks of things, the path may be a little bit easier between Alicia and Jay because they are both products of the American society. So they are more alike than they are different, which helps a lot. And plus, they have the advantage of knowing how to remain calm in the face of conflict, which, I mean, that right there is like diamonds and golds and pearls on top of each other. Rubies too. Emeralds too. But anyway, this is my 2 cents on the matter. As a married woman who is also not well behaved, I don't act right. And you best believe that I'm difficult. I'm very high maintenance. And my husband married me as is. The reason why difficult women win is because whenever we lift up ourselves, naturally everyone around us rises to the occasion. The UNHCR proves that the women who live in nations that score high on the United Nations Human Development Index tend to be healthier, wealthier, and more educated and have more autonomy, meaning that she can make her own decisions independently of others than women who live in nations which score lower.
Living in a country with high GDP and long average life expectancy can provide conditions to ensure happiness. And it's more likely that you will live comfortably, enjoying the advantages of modern civilization.
In other words, the higher a woman's standards are, which means that she's not easily impressed, the healthier, wealthier, more educated, and longer living the citizens in the society she resides in also become. Here's my case in point. It is not the difficult women's communities that are being gentrified, is it? You see, wherever you find difficult women, you find prosperity. So that's all I have to say for now. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click on the notifications bell so you'll know whenever I upload any new content. Take care until next time.